Okay, so I did not think I was going to do another episode so quickly after the last one. I really hope I get to keep doing these. The reception to the last video was great, but I really wanted to talk about this now because I just beat the game today and I've been playing it basically all week, trying to get it done for the Everything Wrong With. I don't know how long it's going to take for this video to come out compared to the Everything Wrong With. I'm prioritizing that, but I really wanted to talk about this game because reviews came out today, and despite what they say, I'm really afraid that people are going to think that this game sucks purely based on its visual style and you know, lack of visual, you know, fidelity or quality. Everything I love about Pokemon Legends Arceus. I don't want to make this as long as the Sonic 06 video. Let's see how it goes. So initially, I was really skeptical. I really wanted to love the game. When it was announced, I was blown away. I've been a longtime Pokemon fan. I've played Pokemon basically my whole life, as far as I can remember. And barring a few Pokemon games here and there that I missed the mark on when they came out, I have not played the Gen 4 remakes. I have not played Gen 8. I have not played Black and White 2. I own all those games. I haven't played the Let's Go games either, but I own them. And so it's so refreshing to see a new I mean, granted, it's on the heels of like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know that it's sort of emulating that style. A lot of games seem to be doing that after that game did so well, but I think that this game definitely lends itself to that. I think it's a great combination of, you know, a classic Pokemon game mixed with Monster Hunter, mixed with, in a weird way, Pokemon Snap, in a weird way mixed with Pokemon Colosseum, because it's just like, yes, the 3D aspects of Colosseum is what I sort of think of when I play this game, but at the same time, Colosseum and XD had their own sort of like feel to them that felt like they were an outsider's take on the Pokemon genre, if you want to call it a genre, but like this feels kind of like that, and there's not many things about this game that I dislike. I think for the most part, I really do love this game. There's a lot to like about it. Obviously, you'll have to play the game for yourself, and it's hard to categorize what it is specifically that I like about this game and what I love about this game. There's so much to do. I actually care about the NPCs. I've never done that in a Pokemon game before. There have been certain NPCs here and there where I'm like, oh, I know you, or like, you are familiar. Like, I think the first time I ever really liked an NPC was in Gen 3, the lovers of the Verdant Turf Tunnel. Like, they were the first NPCs that I was like, oh man, I actually kind of care about them. And Gen 3 had a lot of, you know, NPCs here and there that I'm like, oh, I know you. You're the sports team, or not the sports team, the the news team. Or you're like the Winster family, or whatever that family's called. But like in this one, there's a lot of NPCs that, like, a lot of them look the same, you know, just to cut around the corners, but some of them have like very interesting side quests. And that's something that in Pokemon you don't really think about too much. It's the side quest. Here, it's its own system, and it's fun. Like you get little rewards for it, and they're not like game changing or anything, but they're appreciated, you know, like they help out for sure. I think one of the biggest things that I love the most about the game is the way that it handles the evolution process, because in traditional Pokemon, you have them evolve whenever a certain condition is met automatically. And in this game, you don't. Like, if they reach a certain level, there's no need for an Everstone anymore, is basically the point. Like, you can evolve them whenever you want, or whenever you need to, if you need to. If you don't, you just don't. But if you want them to evolve, you do, you know? But you can keep them the way that they are if you want. You know, like, there's always that, you don't have to mash B, or they don't have any hold items, but that's okay. You know, like, it's a collectathon's dream, and I think that that's mostly what I love about it, because Pokemon has sort of always been a collectathon kind of game, but it's always been so massive that, like, it just seems unattainable, especially with the trading aspect. They always expect you to trade with someone else, but Legends Arceus being like a standalone game, it's not like part of, as far as I'm concerned, it's not really part of Generation 8, you know, like Sword and Shield and the Gen 4 remakes are sort of their own thing compared to Legends Arceus, or at least Legends is its own thing compared to those games. It follows the structure of like, gotta catch them all, but it's actually attainable in one game. There's no two separate versions, it's just the one. And you don't need to have like Pokemon Home in order to, I don't know if there's gonna be Pokemon Home functionality, there probably will be, but you don't need Pokemon Home to like bring all your Pokemon together. You can catch them all within a single save file. It'll take a while, and I like that too. I like that it will take a while, because there are Pokemon that have, you know, trait evolutions. You have like Kadabra, you have Machoke, you have Magmar, you have Electabuzz, you have Rhydon. So like a bunch of Pokemon that actually come from Gen 4, that come from Sinnoh, that evolve with a held item. In this one, all you need is the item. Like, the item itself is what lets them evolve, and I think that that's so much better, and I really hope that they do stuff like that more going forward. I like that you as a trainer are more involved. Like, there aren't really trainer battles, because that was the whole point of like Pokemon up until this point, was having the trainer battles. And this one, there are battles, but they're so few and far between that that's really not the point. You're not aiming to be a champion in the battle sense. You're aiming to be a champion in the catching sense, and that in a way feels so much more rewarding, because your task almost feels unobstructed, you know, like, because you're going through the story, and the story is very heavily interconnected with what you're doing, whereas other Pokemon games aren't. Like, you know, you're fighting the teams, but fighting the teams is so separate from fighting the gym leaders and becoming champion. Like, but here it's almost like your goal and the plot's goal are one and the same, or like one feeds the other, and I really like that about the game too. It even like factors the legendaries into account, and I know that some of the main series games do too, but like this one, basically all the legendaries are part of the plot, which is really cool. The areas are massive. They are really big. They're not massive to the point where like you'll get lost, because honestly, like, that's something else I really love about it, is that all the areas are very memorable. Some of them are small, and that's why they're memorable, because they're not too big. But you have like distinct areas, and all the areas are really easy to be like, oh, I know where I am. Like, you look around and you're like, okay, this is the area that I'm at roughly. And if not, you have a map. I kind of wish that you could just pull up the map while you're playing, but instead, like, you can pull up the map pretty easily, but it's almost like you're pausing the game, and that's fine. I don't really prefer it that way, but you can put markers on, and you can like, there's so many elements from other games that I think enhance a game like this's experience. And it's funny because like I always go back to Pokemon every so often, and I always enjoy my time going back to it. I'm going to be playing a lot of Pokemon this year, but it's so weird because this combines a lot of my favorite elements from other games into a Pokemon game. Fast travels, exploring sort of an open world-ish. Like, people have compared like it to Breath of the Wild, and maybe other games too. I'm not entirely sure what other people have compared it to, but in my mind, I've experienced with like the Batman Arkham games, and weirdly enough, it kind of reminds me of that, in that like I would open the map and look around and be like, oh, what area needs my attention? Oh, I'm gonna put a marker there. Oh, I see where the marker is. I'm just gonna follow the marker, and I'm going to like fly there, or I'm going to run there, or whatever. And like on the way, I might get stopped by an enemy, and I have to whatever. It's really fun. It's really fun. And it's always so exciting to like find new things. Like, this is a game that like you kind of need a guide for certain parts of the game for. On the whole, I would say you kind of do, because if you're really aiming for 100%, there are certain things you might need a guide for, but I would say that like 97% of the game is just so fun to go in blind, because like you don't know what's coming next, you don't know what you're gonna find. There were so many Pokemon that I was like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna be here, you know? And so when you find them and you catch them, it's so rewarding. Like, catching has never been easier, and that sounds like a bad thing, but when your task is to find all these Pokemon, it's a blessing. I don't know. I really love this game. And I want to say that in defense of just how ugly it is, because that was the first thing that struck out to me. It was just, visually, it's bad. And I acknowledge it's bad, but I will say that I think it gets away with it purely based on how fun it is. It's not like super innovative necessarily. It is for a Pokemon game. It's definitely innovative for a Pokemon game, but it's stuff that we've seen other games do before. And I think that it gets away with it just because like it's on the Switch and it runs well. And also there are almost 300 Pokemon in the game. I don't want to like, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but there are like 250 Pokemon in the game. And also most of those Pokemon can spawn in the wild, and they all can be different sizes, and they all have like their own stats. And like, there's so much data that you have to put on. Like, it's honestly like being sort of in game development and learning how games work, and knowing like hardware restrictions, knowing software limitations, all that stuff. It honestly like impresses me more and more that Pokemon exists, because it's just like, how? And it's honestly like, because to the layman, you look at this and you're like, oh, well, this is no like, you know, Detroit Become Human. It's like, well, of course, like, who cares? I mean, obviously a lot of people care about like visuals and stuff and graphics, but it's just like, if the game is fun and it plays well, and like it's fast, because it's like, it's very stable. It's a very stable game. It loads fairly quickly for all the areas it needs to load. Honestly, that's the one downside, is it's not great visually. And I don't want that to bog down, like, I don't want that to be a negative point against it, because that's not the point of this video. But I think that it gets away with that purely based on how impressive it is in terms of functionality, in terms of how fun it is, in terms of how maybe it's not super replayable, but you will be playing it for hours. I will say that. There's a lot that goes into the story that I really like. It's nothing incredible. It's nothing like particularly special for a Pokemon game, but I do like the theming that comes into play. Like there's with time travel stories, or with like a fish out of water or a fish out of time stories, things get messy here and there, but on the whole, I like how they kept the lore consistent to what Pokemon is and has been in the past. You know, they talk about Almighty Sinnoh and the difference between Dialga and Palkia and how they think that they're Sinnoh, which is something that we didn't really know before. We always thought that when they talked about Sinnoh, they meant Arceus, and no, it turns out that they were technically talking about Arceus, but it turns out that what they were thinking about was two separate beings. So they were both right, but they were both wrong. And, you know, you have those two clans who are fighting one another, and you see like the beginnings of what would eventually become the Sinnoh region. And those two clans kind of, in a weird way, represent religion. And I kind of like that they tackle sort of, I mean, I don't think it was intentional necessarily, like they're not really making a statement. It's just more like, oh, that is kind of how religion is. Like they're all talking about a deity in a way that suits their own beliefs. All the characters are very memorable. Most of them are really likable. You know, I think their designs are really great. The animations are another point against the game, but like most of the game is animated really well. It's only really during conversations that the animation really just kind of sucks. But like on the whole, if you look at a lot of animations, from the Pokemon to your own animations to like when you start a battle, they're all so good. And like they're very expressive, even if the expressions aren't like blended super well with the rest of like the animations and the models. But like they're very expressive. They're very, I don't know. I like this game. And I think part of the reason why I love the game so much is because I was kind of ready to not like it, because I thought it was going to be very bare. Initially, when it was revealed, I was very excited because I was like, oh man, this looks awesome. This looks amazing. I'm so excited. And then like more trailers came out and it looked the same, if not worse. And I'm like, oh no, this is gonna suck. And then I finally played it and I was like, hold on. Like for the first hour, I was like, I don't know. This tutorial seems kind of long. I'm personally not bothered by it, but I could see how people could get sort of turned off by this. But as soon as like you really get into the thick of it, I was like, oh shit, this is actually really cool. This is really, and this is as a long-time Pokemon fan. This isn't just as someone who's like, I don't know what Pikachu is. You know, like I've been playing Pokemon my whole life. You know, that's where my username comes from. But it's just such a fun game. And the hunting aspect of catching Pokemon, it feels so much better than like the rest of the RPG ones. Play the game. It's really fun. I'm sure you've seen other people talk about it. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I don't know if it's a refreshing take or what. I love this game, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, because there's probably a lot more I could say. The boss battles are so good. They're so unique. I love them. They're so great. Being able to ride Pokemon. Like, there's so many things that changes from the main series that they're not, like, you would initially think that they're bad. You would initially think, like, oh man, that sucks that we don't have this anymore. And it's just like, well, yeah, but you don't need it for this game. You know, like, it's such a great standalone title. Like, I think Pokemon needs more games like this that are just standalone. Because, like, initially, that was the whole thing, right? Is that, like, Tajiri wanted to make something that, you know, you need a friend for. Or, like, there's sort of cooperative play in mind. This is such a welcome change, in my opinion, because you really don't need another game. Because even Colosseum and Gale of Darkness, like, they were standalone titles, technically, but in order to like complete the Pokedex, you needed the other Gen 3 games. You don't for this one. Everything that's in the Pokedex, not all 898 Pokemon, mind you, it has its own Pokedex, its own like ways of capturing stuff. It's a self-contained thing, and it's fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna cut it off there because I need to get to editing the Everything Wrong With, but I love talking about it. That was so refreshing after recording the Everything Wrong With. I don't know if you can tell my voice is a little shot. Whatever, it's fine. I bet most of you don't even know or care about what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Stay safe and stay awesome. This is Jar5, signing off.